This is Chance Cove, a small nook in Conception Bay, Newfoundland and Labrador. And this is Lucy, my dog. The date today is February 12th, 2020. And with NL entering its second round of Alert Level 5 lockdown due to COVID, I thought it'd be nice to get out and watch the tides. Chance Cove isn't a super popular spot. Almost every time I come here, I find myself the only person there, especially in the winter. But there's always a lot happening. Things people couldn't do if they were present, and things people couldn't change regardless of their individual effort. The waves will crash, the rocks will get beaten and polished, birds will chirp, the tide will continue to change the land, and that uncomfortable cold wind will keep your hands in your pockets and make you glad your ears are covered up. And there's beauty to all that. The reality about those tides is if you were to get in with them, they'd almost certainly kill you. But a thing isn't beautiful because it's safe. A thing is beautiful because it can be observed as such. If no observing creatures are around to watch something beautiful happen, will it still carry the essence of beauty while hypothetically waiting for someone to observe it? The answer, of course, is yes. Phenomena happens even when no one is around to bear witness to them. The best example of this is where you stand, the air you breathe, and the food you eat. This planet had many phenomenal things happen to it in its first 10 million of 4,500 that nobody could see as far as we know. That must have been beautiful. Had to have been. Another 4 billion years would pass where this land would change shaping and beaten and polished by rocks flying through space that were in part responsible for giving us water, an atmosphere, mountains, and even our moon. None of these things were adored until we came along and developed a language to express our adoration for them. Perhaps this is why we speak to the sky in religious practice, to express our adoration for the nature of things to nature itself, hoping it hears us, and maybe hoping it knows we're sorry for what we're doing to it. I was born on February 11th, 1998, making me a part of Generation Z. My mom was born 25 years before that, and her mom 25 years before that. A lot of you watching or listening are probably in my generation, and some of you are possibly my mom's generation. Each of us, though, a quarter century apart and all alive to talk about our experiences. My grandmother was born in the aftermath of her family returning from war with the latest evil of the time. Her and her 6 brothers are growing up through the Cold War and the period of time where the generation before them handed over weapons that were only matched in power by the sun itself. They were also handed down the uneasy tension between countries with different ideologies. Ideologies that my grandmother's generation couldn't possibly understand on their fishing docks or farms.
Changing rapidly in Newfoundland.
News at this time was hard to get when it wasn't from the radio. And the radio always told them that the other guys were bad and evil and that they were better off without them. Once this generation figured out that all their proxy wars wouldn't solve these problems or help them dominate their enemies, at least without ending the entire world and everyone on it, they looked to controlling money and resources. Thus the world is rigged up for rapid consumerism and running on the idea of infinite oil. And due to modern medicine, they live longer, so they all keep their jobs. But then they have kids, our parents, and they say to them, hey, we're not really sure how this started, but there's these bad guys, you see, and we need to make jobs and money and own all the oil so they go broke. And that'll make them mad, so you have to keep moving the Navy every now and then to keep them in check. This might also make prices of things you like fluctuate because of sanctions.
Oil-producing countries of the Arab world decided to use their oil as a political
But hey, you can start a family at 20, own a house by 21, and go to Florida twice a year like me. And this is arguably the most confused generation of them all ever. They grew up hearing and seeing unimaginable things happen, and on TV this time. The moon landing, ping pong politics, the end of the Cold War, beautiful music, a group of surfers called the Z-Boys blew this new thing called skateboarding up.
Don't you believe what he says?
The vibes were so new and unmatched. Movies about space and peace out among the stars were created and are still lucrative to this day. Star Wars, Star Trek, 2001: A Space Odyssey, etc. Stories about the beauty of coming of age and adolescence and love and achieving your dreams came out in time to catch an audience the same age as characters in the movies. Cars looked incredible, but in the end, it was vibes like this that lost traction and led to the heartbreak of a generation. This experience, combined with the knowledge that you can find and do whatever you want for the rest of your life, you can begin to understand why they became confused. Their generation isn't even in office yet, and all they've been told to do is go out, get oil, and a dude might call you to ask why his Xbox headset isn't working. But ultimately, I believe that their dreams aren't false, that they weren't impossible, they just weren't coming true. If you're my age, you may even recall the theme of this in elementary or grade school. Our curiosity crushed earlier than all, yet knowing more than all before as the most educated generation, with access to the largest archive of knowledge and story the world has ever seen in the history of everyone and everything ever before, period. We knew they went to the moon, we knew about dinosaurs, we knew Star Wars, we knew skateboards, we knew the earth was getting too warm, we knew cars needed to go faster, and we knew Kurt Cobain was sad, and that the 90s looked tough. But why? We can do whatever we want as long as it's not our dreams. There's a lot to do. We know the same things our parents did, only that they couldn't help us with math homework because it's different now. Our generation is stuck under the veil of ideas from people born in the 40s, and the messes caused over the course of 80 years with each other and with the planet. We are being handed nukes, oil spills, dying ecosystems, a dying planet, the aftermath of refusing each other our rights, refusing to acknowledge our culture's guilt, refusing to accept that we come from a dark past and that it's a very economy that's depressing us, and ultimately killing us. In the earlier days of the internet, and up until not too long ago, there was this colorful, unprecedented, and saturated culture found in message boards, early social media platforms, magazines, and etc. that were all about something different, fought for something else, but all took flavors and danced with others. A culture that didn't care about what made you different. A culture that ripped apart class and color from person and soul. A culture so loud and totally awesome that its people may have not even known that they were fighting against societal norms, laying the groundwork for having really open discussions about progress for our people. A safe place people could really be themselves and ask questions they really desired answers to. I remember I had my first profound conversations late at night in the 5th grade at skate parks and on Forge mode in Halo 3, and I just don't see it around anymore. It may be that the well that we once took infinite ideas and stories from was always refilled with the runoff of hot takes from people we poured the ideas onto. Family members, co-workers, friends, and etc. And thus taken from again and repeat. Jack and Jill were really getting shit done. And then I don't know how or when, but somewhere along the way someone struck them down, took their pail, spiked it, spoiled the well, and told Jack that it was Jill that struck them down, and vice versa. It was Jill who did it to Jack, or the other way around, zero outside influence. Someone made it so there were different wells that had different names, different missions, plans, products that all sounded good to them both, and that they wouldn't have to deal with each other ever again if they didn't want to. But ultimately, it divided them to a point where they can't stand each other at their own dinner table. The story makes me want to dive headfirst into the floor, I swear. We pick and choose our science like it even matters, people wear flags and people burn them, and we have accidentally become the very animals we already declared primitive years before. We have to get mad about this. I don't know what it is, but whatever this is, it sucks. As much as I enjoy them, I refuse to believe that memes are all that are left. r/accidental renaissance is super tight, and songs for sad boy hours are nice. But the general zeitgeist already shows that we're sad and fear there isn't enough time to correct these things. The most important of these things being left for us is a generation's broken dreams and the low morale associated with them. There is some really crazy, cool shit happening out there. Things like how Texas is powered more by wind than coal. We're in space again. There are cars. There are cars that drive themselves. We are listening to music from our parents' day where dreams still seem possible. And we're still dealing with the frustrations of older generations desperately trying to navigate this beautiful, angry, chaotic, and ever-changing mess. Just trying to get that one last rock of nostalgia in a totally unfamiliar city where sidewalks are made of rainbows and people tell each other they matter. When all we want to hear from them is, I genuinely believe that not all of these people are inherently bad. A lot of the same things that happened to us happened to them. They just looked and sounded a little different. Take my grandmother, for example. She grew up on an island. And I'm not talking about this island. I'm talking about this island. She didn't know any of this was gonna happen. She was worried about, like, water rising and shit. Where did he go? I think. I'm worried about our generation. In the way I worry about having a massive party. I'm worried about how this thing will look when the party's over, when we are our parents' age. Will there be an even greater mess and or heartache to leave behind? We are a generation, one of the first of which, for the most part, already believes everything sucks and knows we can't afford to be ignorant anymore. And I think this will bring us great enlightenment later on. Or at least I hope it will. We're too motivated for it not to. We're at each other's necks all the time from dawn until just before the next to be better. But we're rushing the process. Zooming, if you will. I think we need to take a deep breath and just look up at each other, because we're all doing what we think we must, and we all have a different worst day, and I just think we need to try and understand each other and how we got here. For the time we spend on this rock is too short to be spent without empathy for one another. I believe we, in the grand scheme of things, are just the kids who throw on our headphones, grab our mop and bucket, and work our night shifts. A generational cleanup crew that starts revolutions from their bedrooms. We are kids who were once deprived of long-form discussion for elite storytelling, and we just need to learn to talk to each other again. Where previous generations wanted to work in an air-conditioned office over the summer in brown nose, we want to plant trees in BC because we can, and can do it for the shittiest of commissions. Where previous generations wanted to live in ginormous mansions with the big truck and lake, our generation just wants to wake up and discover that world out there that we only grew up dreaming about. It isn't reaching to say that we have no clearer direction right now, other than to try and reverse at least 80 years of damage to our hearts and to our planet. I believe we really have no choice at this point. Many tell us that there is no damage, or that's impossible to clean up, or that we will never get along. But I know of some people that disprove that easily, and I encourage you to look into them on your own time, because the work they've done for us is perplexing, and I will never do it any justice. It's important to keep in mind that not all of our individual efforts will be noted or have a massive impact on people, or sway their opinions in any way. The majority of us have almost given up on that and just decided that they're bad people, and that we will never be harmonious with them again. And if you're sad about that ultimatum, here's our participation trophy. Welcome to the party. I have a couple as well. The biggest of contributors to all this is that we are disconnected from our humanity and our nature as beings, and the dark question is, if older generations could live to 200, would they live long enough to realize they messed up? Or maybe how, or understand what we feel? Or feel it? Or are we just destined to disagree with our elders? All we could possibly know is the grind that has been set out for us. All we have a firm grasp of is what is expected of us, and how we should behave and the excuses that fuel this. We also know that this is not what we desire, We know that the world is in pain and that our phones are designed to make us angry. We know our social skills are dropping off because of the very devices that distract us from such pain. We are so in our heads to a point that only we could understand each other. And right now, our language that was once used to express our adoration for everything as it is now changing to express our resentment for everything as it was. And that is just how a language evolves. You can call it new speak or proper speak, but this is what's happening. And I'm not against it, nor am I for it. I will talk to you as an observer and entertain your thoughts and ideas because I wish to understand you and I wish for us to understand each other. I think a lot of us actually wish for the same thing. It's just been so exhausting. I think the time is calling for a cultural renaissance because there's a vacuum for such a thing right now, and we have no choice but to accept this mess left for us and clean up after our parents. We have no choice but to figure out the story we will write down in the books, whether it's why all this happened and how we came together and healed, or if it's why we excommunicated each other from our ideological churches and how this planet got another scar. It's time for us to stop making these existential questions, and it's time for us to leave our heads, even if for a while, just to take care of things and the people around us. We will deal with mass confusion, we will deal with fear and misdirected anger, we will help each other and fail many times, but we will try to be kind and try our hardest to succeed. And that, folks, is the mission of Pink Mist. A call to come back to Earth, even if we burn up into pink mist in the atmosphere. I know we're getting ready to leave this ship behind and go to Mars or whatever, and I'm excited about it too. But before we make the next jump, and if we do, what do we want to bring with us? An epic story of a species that came together? Or unconfronted guilt left behind because we wish not to remember it? Thank you for listening and watching, and welcome to Pink Mist.